Okay, we are live, and wow, it feels like an eternity since I've last talked to you live. So, thanks for being here. Thank you for watching, and absolutely feel free to ask your questions, make your comments or suggestions at any point. Use the chat box. I will see it. I am keeping an eye on it. All right, so we said that we are going to talk a little bit about team development stages and virtual work. And this came through in some of the team workshops that I've been delivering for the past couple of weeks, where I've asked the team members to take a quiz. And what that quiz was revealing was the development stage, the team development stage that they felt they were at. So obviously, when we worked together as a team, then we were looking at, okay, what are your results for your team? Where are you as a team? What's the development stage that you are at? So some of you might be familiar with the team development stages. Some of you might not. So I thought, let's start with sharing what the team development stages are, so that we're clear about what we're talking about, right? Again, one thing I learned from working with lawyers for more than 15 years is that, hey, we need to define things before we start talking about them. And now you probably know what the team development stages are, right? So we start with forming. That's the first stage where members of the team, they get acquainted to each other, they find out more background about each other, and they get more familiar with one another, right? So that's the forming stage where we're socializing a lot. We have a lot of the discussions and every social activities that help us understand more about one another and about who we are as individuals. And then as we move to the next stage, we move to storming, and that's where potential conflicts are, and that's where individuals in the team, they compete with one another because they want to prove themselves, right? Every individual on the team will want to prove what they're good at, what their strengths are, and they will want to be noticed and seen and heard, right? And that's where a lot of conflict happens as well, because of that kind of competition and because the team is not gelled yet, right? So these are normal stages in the team development. When we've gone through the storming stage properly, then we get to norming. And that's when we make all the norms of how do we work, how do we do things around here, what, and that is where a lot of those cultural aspects are also discussed. And we focused a lot on our kind of culture. How do we do things around here that makes us feel successful and be successful, right? So all the norms and procedures and processes and everything is there in the norming stage. We start to unpack some of the stuff and start to agree on how we do things around here. Now, obviously, that helps with performance, with high performance. So that gets us into the performing stage where obviously as a team, we understand how we can work together. We understand how we can collaborate. We also understand how we address disagreements and conflicts, and we understand what our mission is and what our goals are. So it's easy to perform because we're aligned. We understand what the mission is and what we're all about. We know what we can count on each other for. We know our strengths, and we also address our weaknesses. So you have that kind of dynamic that helps you not waste time indefinitely on disagreeing, but use that time to work together efficiently and productively. And obviously, then we get into adjourning or reforming. So as projects end, some teams, well, they just say goodbye to one another because the project ended. Now, if we're part of the same organization, we're going to stay together in the same team, potentially, but we will start to work on a different project. So that's why adjourning sometimes is also reforming the team. Now, what we saw in the workshops that we did with a few teams by now is this. We know the team stages are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. But what this means in the context of virtual work, that's a totally different story. And now we are looking at one of the teams that I work with, and the result of their quiz was that they are in the performing stage. That's the highest score that they got as a team. So again, these are average scores, right? And the top one, they're all average as the team average, right? So they got the highest score in performing, and the one closest to it is in norming. And then when we started to unpack some of the stuff that happened with the team is, first of all, we find out that this team they don't all work together all the time. So they will have different projects and different small teams working on these projects, right? So that explains why we would have some people on the team also feeling that they are at the stage of forming, that they're at the stage of storming or adjourning as they move through these projects, right? So it's not, when you look at the team stages and the development of your team, you don't look at it as a linear thing through time. Just consider the dynamics that happen as you go through your activities every day. So clearly in this team, there will be some people who, as they end a project, they're gonna now move on to working with somebody else in the larger team on a different project. So when you look at adjourning, that means that potentially some of the team members who finalize a project, that they might feel a little bit sad because the project is ended. Of course, I'm going to celebrate that we did it and we worked well together. But at the same time, I might feel a little bit sad that this is now over and I'm not going to work with that particular team for I don't know how long, right? Because I'm moving on to the next project. So that's one thing. And that's when we need to stop and recognize the effort and the contribution that those team members have made. Now, for this particular team, what this diagnosis, if you want, also meant is this. Because of the crisis, they had to do adjustments. They had to adapt to a lot of things. They had to change how they were doing things. So obviously, even if they were gelled and performing as a team, they had to go back to norming because they needed new processes and new norms in place to help them operate in this new environment. And they keep doing it because it's not like this has stopped anywhere. No, they still need to adapt as they move through the days, right? Because the environment changes, and they operate a lot with physical work as well. So the environment that they operate in that is crucial. So they had to adapt to moving from just physical work and being in the same office and being going out in the field and really adapting to this new virtual world. And how do we make it work? And how can we come up with new norms and procedures to help us? Absolutely, what that means to them is that, did they miss socializing? Well, I think that is absolutely right. That's a no-brainer. And if you look at what's been happening with you and your team and your organization, if we did the same diagnosis for your team, chances are that yes, some of the people on the team will feel that they need at least part of the forming stage. When it comes to let's talk to each other, let's see each other, I want that bit of socializing and even brainstorming and planning and coming up with strategies and really debating things, but that's in a more relaxed environment. That's one of the bits and pieces that has been missing a lot, and that a lot of people on the team are missing because we're so focused on getting things done and getting those results, and that's absolutely fine and that's understandable. But looking at this, you can understand why it is important, why the social part is also important, because it helps to get all of the team members all the way to performing, so that they don't feel that they lack that part. Also, what this means is, of course, some of them felt they're still in the storming stage, because where norming didn't work well, where they couldn't agree on processes and procedures that are new and that they need to follow now, they started fighting, they started arguing, and they went back into storming. And some of them were complaining, hey, you know what? We're arguing a lot and we need to stop this. We need to come up with more constructive ways of solving conflict. And not just solving conflict, but really looking at addressing disagreements and issues that we have before they even get to the conflict level. Now, what also happens with teams, so we've seen they can go from performing to norming and then back to performing, back to norming. They can switch, right? So that can alternate depending on what you need to adapt to. We have all of this working environment keeps changing and changing and changing, and absolutely we need to adapt to it. So we're gonna get back to norming and then performing and then norming and performing if the team as a whole is at that stage, at the performing stage. What also happened with some of the teams is that they went from some of the teams that were at the norming stage, they went back to storming. And why that happened is, first of all, it happened to co-located teams that were converted to virtual teams overnight. Does that make sense? Absolutely. We had the norms in place for those times when we were working together in the office. What happened with becoming virtual overnight is that, okay, we found ourselves already in a different environment. We didn't have any kind of procedures or norms to operate in this kind of environment. We had no idea what to expect from one another. We had no agreement on how we are going to work with one another. And some of the teams went back to storming because they also wanted to prove themselves again of how they can work in a virtual environment and that they can work in a virtual environment. Let's not forget that a lot of employers before the pandemic were not allowing their people to work from home because they didn't trust they could work from home. They couldn't trust they would actually get the work done, right? Or they were reluctant. Okay, let's put it in a nicer way. They were reluctant that the productivity would be at the same levels. So what happened when teams became virtual overnight is they went back into storming. Why? Because you have all of the individual team members now feeling that they have to prove themselves again, that they can do the work, that they are doing the work, that they are doing great work from home as well. And that was a struggle. And it still is in some cases, right? Also, for teams who could no longer operate because of lockdown restrictions, or they needed to change everything about the way that they operated, not just because of new safety rules and procedures, but also because you couldn't go on site to complete some kind of physical work because that was not allowed anymore. So what do you do? How can you pivot? What do you do? And of course, that takes you either from performing to norming or from norming to storming, so that you can come up with new ways and new ideas and new approaches to how you work as a team. Okay, that is what I wanted to share with you. So some of the things that you can apply, especially if you find your team is somewhere in between the norming and performing stages or alternating between stages. And again, remember, actually, some of your team members, they might feel that they're in different places depending on what you're doing on the team. So some of your members might feel that they need some socializing from the forming stage. They also would need some norming in place because, again, we need new sets of rules and procedures and processes that sustain the way that we work, right? So, and you might be feeling the same. We stopped socializing. Of course, we will need more of that. We stopped addressing conflict, or we stopped addressing potential worries or anxiety because we're not face to face, and so we're not discussing about that anymore in a virtual environment. Of course, we're gonna miss that. Of course, you might get some storming in your team again, because I will want to make myself heard. I will want to make myself seen before I get to, norming and performing. And also consider that what's happened with a lot of the teams is they went through the adjourning stage as well, because the way that we were working together ended so abruptly. And the emotional toll that took on everybody on the team, that was just huge. So of course there was sadness. Of course there was disappointment. Of course there was anxiety as we finished that project, as maybe, a lot of the teams, they are operating at 25% because 75% of their team is gone. They were laid off. So that, talk about adjourning, that is one possible adjourning stage, which is that's huge, and it takes such a toll on everybody. On, of course, the people who leave because they're left without a job, they're insecure, they don't know what the future brings. They've been, and maybe possibly a lot of them, if not all of them, they enjoyed working there, they liked what they were doing, they were getting along well with people. It's just that in this kind of economy and environment, there was no other solution. So for them, absolutely, that makes sense that they would be sad, disappointed, and suffer with anxiety. But also, don't forget about people who stay, the 25% who stay, And they also get a lot of that anxiety and a lot of sadness because, especially in an office where they still go in the office and they see empty chairs and empty desks, they suffer a lot because, and they also feel guilty, guilty for being happy that they still have a job, guilty that they still have a job. It's that is such a huge emotional toll that impacts performance so much. So some solutions that you can apply are definitely make sure that you allocate time and space, create that environment to address disagreements before they become conflicts, and make sure that you evaluate your team processes and also your people contributions, and continue your team development, because that's when we talk about well-being, mental health, that's a huge part of that, because people need to still know, first of all, that they're part of a team, that they're still seen and heard, and that they're moving forward. Even if it's, one small step per month, I need to know that we're going somewhere, that we're still developing as a team. Don't forget to celebrate accomplishments. And when I talk about accomplishments, processes and progress made. And that means celebrating people in your team, because it's easy for us to think about the next thing that we have to do, the tasks that we have to still complete, all of the things that haven't been done and possibly could have been done better. Focus on accomplishments as well, so that you see, first of all, how much has been done, how much you've accomplished together as a team, and celebrate it, because that links very nicely with that need to socialize. When we celebrate our accomplishments, we do it from a different perspective, which is more relaxed. It's not just, yes, we're celebrating work accomplishments, but that means that we're more relaxed about it. The celebration means a more relaxed environment. It doesn't have to be formal. It's going to be more informal. And it's going to be part of that need of connection, of talking to one another, those water cooler conversations that we're all missing, right? That can be easily integrated in your virtual work with, celebrations. Definitely focus on people, process, and your product or service. And that means that you can plan for some sessions where people just get together and they do the planning and the strategy, and you work together as a team to plan. It doesn't come from somewhere up above, but you're also working together on planning. And that's what will help you as a team leader also focus on your people and have them more engaged and motivated. Definitely check and set your goals and set new goals as you move from one project to another. But definitely that helps, because we might be working on something and we're doing it pretty well and we're implementing things pretty well. But what if the market doesn't need the product that we're still making, right? So that also helps. And then, of course, if and when changes occur, make sure that you recognize and address them directly, right? Don't wait for people to ask you, oh, where is person X? Or why aren't we working on project X anymore? Make sure that you're constantly communicating what's going on, what changes, how you're going to adapt, and not just communicating one way, but make it a dialogue, make it a conversation. Awesome. All right. So if you need to know more about the team development stages, if you want to do this kind of work in your team, feel free to DM me, and I can give you some ideas of how you can do it and what you can use. And I might give you some ideas and help around that, because this is absolutely crucial for us to understand right now how our teams have been impacted and how our team members might be feeling. And so we just look at the diagnosis and we can come up with some solutions in place that get your team unstuck if they're stuck in one development stage that's not particularly helpful. Okay, now, big announcement. Yes, we're opening the Lead for Legacy League. Registrations are open starting today up until May 19th. So 13th to 19th of May, you can register in the Lead for Legacy League. What is this, you ask? It's a global online program for management and leadership development. And I created it because I know the struggles of mid to senior managers and also small business CEOs, especially right now. And I can see them in my work with the teams. A lot of those struggles are not just your struggle as a manager or leader. They are team struggles as well. So a lot of what we just discussed up until now, we also discuss in the Lead for Legacy League. So we do a lot of assessments and strategies for you and your team, depending on what your situations and challenges are right now. You get access to a core of online management and leadership courses that help you communicate better and understand how you can improve communication, and also manage difficult conversations, give feedback, listen better, and become a more emotionally intelligent leader, and develop that emotional intelligence so that you can apply it in your work and with your team. And we have weekly live sessions, which are also recorded. So if you can't join a live session, you can also watch the recording, and you can also send your questions ahead of the live sessions if you know that you won't be able to join live. But we do group coaching and Q&A, hot seat, masterminding. So you also can get your share of individual coaching in that group. But the whole point of this is for you to get the support that you need in implementing what you learn. So that's the essential thing, because coming from the learning and development background, I've seen a lot of management and leadership programs, and they take a few days and then that's it, you're off on your own. And the issues and the challenges are when we need to implement the learning, to apply the learning, because your environment hasn't changed. Your team hasn't changed. Basically, after attending a management and leadership program, you've changed. Now, this program is ongoing. So you stay for as long as you need. It goes month by month. So you can join for a month, get what you need. You need to break it. You can come back next month. Or a month after. It really, you can coordinate with what you need, and you get the support that you need when you need it. But the whole point of it is to help you implement the learning and to have the support and to get ideas and strategies and tools and techniques that you can use and that are going to be helpful for you to manage and lead your team and really become a dream boss that builds a dream team. So we also have, of course, networking with peers, hear me out, from different countries and industries. How cool is that? So you get to expand your network and get some fresh new ideas from people who work in different environments. And that is huge because that takes you out of isolation. We also invite guest speakers every month from various areas and industries and backgrounds, again, to come up with fresh ideas that you can then take and use and implement them in your team or business or organization. And obviously, you have community support and communication 24/7. We have our group currently on WhatsApp. We're evolving, we're growing, and we might come up with a better idea, but so far, this is it. So you have a lot of online learning, group coaching, masterminding, brainstorming and strategizing, networking, support, everything that you need to get you to the next level and to get you out of isolation and ease on that anxiety that I see a lot of managers dealing with right now, because the pressure is there for you to not only perform, but also help your team be motivated and engaged and really lead with purpose and with care and in such uncertain times, right? This is why we call it Lead for Legacy, because this is for you, the people who want to lead different, to be a different kind of manager, a different kind of leader, and really leave a legacy in place. Okay, so happy to talk to you about it. That was it for today. Whenever you're watching this, you can ask your questions. Let me know what I can help you with. Let me know if you want to know more about your team development stages and where your team is and how you can take them further to become that high-performing dream team that you want them to be. And by the way, you're part of that team too. Awesome. Thanks for being here and see you next time. Bye for now.